Today on Hearts of Heroes. As wildfires rage in one Northern California town,
there's fire everywhere. It's all around us, and we realize that we're not going to be able to get out.
Go, 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 go.
Unlikely heroes step up to rescue their community.
They're completely relying on me and my skills to get them out of this situation.
These heroes did whatever they could to save the lives of their patients and themselves.
And later,
the flash flood's right there!
Flash floods send mud, boulders, and debris slamming into a California community, destroying everything in its path.
A wave of mud just came roaring through the front of the house.
When you hear Paradise, California, unfortunately, you probably are not thinking about Paradise any longer because on November 8th, 2018, the city of Paradise, California was struck by a raging inferno. It took out more than 153,000 acres and ended up becoming one of the most destructive wildfires in state history.
And while it was one of the worst natural disasters to ever hit the state, it brought out the best in the people of Paradise and proved their enduring spirit.
Nestled in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains sits the Northern California town of Paradise. With blue skies, verdant forests, and rolling hills, Paradise truly lives up to its name.
There's a ton of swimming holes everywhere you go. You could ride your bikes out till dark time in a group of little mob of kids, and you felt safe.
But that sense of safety and serenity would be shattered on the morning of November 8th, 2018. It started out as a routine workday for labor and delivery nurse Tamara Ferguson.
I started my shift at Feather River Hospital like any other day. One of my night shift coworkers was leaving and said, "Did you guys notice that there's an orange glow outside?" And a few of us walked outside and we looked, and it looked pretty far away, so we kind of just went back to doing our business.
Brett Harles and his wife, Heather Robach, were going into delivery that morning with their second child. With her upcoming C-section, they really had little time to think of anything else.
We were really happy at the beginning of the day, starting out knowing that you're gonna get to meet your daughter.
What no one yet knew was that 6:30 that morning, a wildfire ignited off Camp Creek Road in Pulgas, California, just 7 miles away. Called the Camp Fire, this inferno was now racing toward Paradise. An hour and a half later, the campfire was literally right outside the doors of Feather River Hospital.
Holly was born at 8 o'clock, exactly. And then about probably 8 to 10 minutes after she was born, doctors were coming down the hallway saying that everyone's got to leave, we're evacuating the fires around the hospital.
My manager was at the desk and I said, "Is this real? What's going on?" She said, "Yes, it's real. Go tell your patients, go get them ready."
They moved us out into the hallway. It was just sheer terror and panic.
To make matters worse, Heather was unable to walk after just having had a C-section. So she was taken by gurney to the emergency room exit. There, she joined the rest of the patients and hospital personnel. The question now, how to safely evacuate all the patients from the hospital.
Medical professionals are trained to handle emergency situations, but in this case, they really had to rely on quick thinking and instincts.
I helped put patients into cars and ambulances, and police cars were driving up, and anywhere that we could put somebody, we put someone.
They moved me from a gurney to a backboard and slid me on the bench seat where the paramedics usually sit.
There was a sheriff who had said that they had room for 2 in their vehicle, and our nurse quickly said, "Right here, I have this baby and the father. We can get in the car and go with you."
But with the fire raging all around them, they soon ran into an even more frightening dilemma.
Go, 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 go.
I looked out the back of the ambulance that I was in, and I just saw flames in front of me, just bright, bright flames all around me. I heard traffic say the ambulance in front of us was on fire. It was kind of the first moment that I thought, Are we gonna die here?
New mom Heather was inside the burning ambulance.
There's fire everywhere. It's all around us. There's nowhere for us to go, and the ambulance dies. And she starts it up again and revs the engine, and it dies again.
Heather's husband, Brett, had made it to safety, but now Heather had to make a heartbreaking phone call to him.
I had just told him that there was fire all around my ambulance, and my ambulance died. And that I just loved him so much. And that I love our kids so much, and I'm just so sorry that I'm not gonna be with them anymore, and now I'm making it out of there.
Coming up, with their options quickly running out, the team from Feather River Hospital has to make some life or death decisions.
And I said, okay, if I'm gonna die right here, I'm gonna do everything I can to protect these patients.
But first, here's a tip on how you can be better prepared for a disaster.
As wildfire seasons in many parts of the United States are seemingly getting longer, red flag warnings are often appearing more and more.
A red flag warning means that if a fire sparks, conditions are just right for that blaze to burn fast and quick. If one goes up in your area, pay attention to the authorities in case an evacuation is necessary.
Have a predetermined escape route and pay attention to the warning signs. That way you can do what you can to make your day just a little bit safer.
On the morning of November 8th, a fast-moving wildfire swept through the town of Paradise, California. The campfire was chasing everyone out within an hour and a half.
Getting hot.
Tamara and the rest of the group from Feather River Hospital were trapped.
I said, okay, if I'm gonna die right here, I'm gonna do everything I can to protect these patients.
Their only hope was to find refuge in a nearby house that was still standing.
I look, and they're kicking down someone's gate, broke into the garage, and they dragged me up the driveway and in.
After moving the patients into the garage, Tamara approached a fire chief.
I said, what do I do? And he gave us all jobs. He said, you go over there and start sweeping. You fill up buckets with water. Do whatever you can so that it doesn't catch fire.
And all I can see is smoke and fire and them running back and forth.
Finally, after hours of fighting the blaze, a ray of hope. A fire truck had made its way through to them.
And it was only a few seconds later that they said, we're going back to Feather River Hospital. And my heart sank, because why would we go back into this fire?
We pull into the hospital parking lot, and there's tons of personnel, and you think, this is over, we're gonna be okay.
We were loading up 10 and 12 patients to a van and getting everybody out. I looked out the back window as flames were all around me again.
It's just fire in front of the ambulance. It's just fire. We didn't think that we were gonna make it out all over again, that we made it all day, and this is the part where we die. It's just sheer terror. And we keep going, she guns it, and boom. It was like you broke through a wall, and all of a sudden there's no fire.
I got a phone call from a gentleman, and he said that he was with Heather, and he was calling to let me know that they were safe. All I could remember telling him was, thank you. I just remember it was just overwhelming.
I don't know why or how, but I do know that every single part of our group at that house played a role in all of us being here today. When you all work together and you focus on surviving and what you have to do to live, you just do it.
The people of Paradise have always prided themselves on the sense of community. But after going through the most heart-wrenching experience of their lives, the bonds that they share now are even stronger. Sheldon Yellen from our sponsor Belfour brought several of the survivors from this horrific fire back to Feather River Hospital so they could all reflect on their experience.
This is your hometown, and you've seen probably what is the worst that you've ever seen in this area.
It is.
How do you feel?
I see definitely a different town that will never be the same. You know, it's just kind of taking it 1 week, 1 year at a time, so.
You were able to bring hope to a family. You allowed the human spirit to come through and to help others in need.
That's why I say that I don't feel like a hero, because we're not unique. Everybody was in this situation. Everybody did really heroic things. There's so many amazing people.
And what would you say to the first responders, given the opportunity?
Going from a doctor to a firefighter for just a couple hours and that intensity, I just hats off to all of them.
Coming up, a flash flood bludgeons a California town.
A wave of water started rushing in, and I was spun around and thrown everywhere.
Surviving one natural disaster is hard enough, but get this, in 2018, just weeks after the city of Montecito, California was hit by a devastating wildfire, then they had rain on top of a burn scar, and that meant mudslide.
Luckily, our first responders were there, relying on preparation and proper training to come to the aid of those in need, and saving many lives along the way.
Montecito is a gorgeous suburb of Santa Barbara, California. It offers stunning beaches and majestic mountain ranges, but in 2017, this picturesque area was devastated by a wildfire.
Around December 4th, the Thomas Fire started and it grew rapidly. The fire intensity removed nearly all the vegetation above the hill slopes of Montecito.
In the weeks following the fire, Nelson Trickler of Santa Barbara Search and Rescue was keeping a close eye on the weather and that barren mountainside.
We knew based on prior experiences of fires that the chance of having some type of flood event was very, very high.
In the early morning hours of January 9th, the storm hit, and it hit hard.
The National Weather Service is closely watching their weather radar, and they see this band of intense precip, and it's making a bullseye for Montecito.
Another firefighter and I heard this sound from the west side. It sounds like 1,000 freight trains. He was like, I think that's a mudslide.
Ventura 29201, there is a very active mudslide coming down Olive Mill towards the 101 right now.
But this was much worse than any mudslide. This was called a debris flow. It's a powerful mixture of water, mud, boulders, and even trees. It was moving extremely fast, picking up cars, demolishing homes, and destroying entire neighborhoods.
Turn around! The flash flood's right there! The flash flood's right there! Get out of here! Go!
Mike, get in the car! Mike, get in the car! Get in the car, Mike! Get in the car!
Debris flow flows super fast, faster than you can run, and it can be super deep. In the case of Montecito, over 20 feet deep.
Kim Kenton lives in Montecito and was desperately trying to get her family out when disaster struck.
A wave of mud just came roaring through the front of the house. I all of a sudden went under the mudslide, which was really like roaring rapids.
Kim's daughter, Lauren, was in a different part of the house when she was overtaken by that violent force of nature.
A wave of water started rushing in, and I was spun around and thrown everywhere.
Coming up, trapped under tons of mud and wreckage, Kim and Lauren are in the fight of their lives.
I heard talking, and that's when I realized I had to get someone to find me.
But first, another safety tip.
If you or your loved ones have been involved in a natural disaster, understand that the emotional toll it takes on an individual can be extremely devastating. But there is hope.
Children and older adults are more at risk, so don't neglect the emotional needs of those around you. Everyone experiences emotions differently.
Focus on the here and now, and that you will get through this together. Your health and those around you is of paramount importance. Tomorrow will be better than today.
In the pre-dawn hours of January 9th, 2018, a deadly mixture of mud and wreckage smashed into the community of Montecito, California. With thousands of people trapped in that sludge, first responders were about to be tested.
The captain said, hey, we can't get the engine out of the station. San Ysidro is completely flooded and it's impassable.
With entire neighborhoods washed away, firefighter and paramedic Andy Rupp knew what he had to do, and he immediately started searching for survivors.
It was a really unique situation for us as firefighters because oftentimes we're directed where to go by people calling for help. And this was more of a time when we realized we needed to go try and figure out if in fact there were people that needed rescuing.
These first responders often experience the same amount of tragedy and loss as the rest of the community. But unlike other people, they have to persevere to make sure they get their job done.
When Kim Canton woke up, she was severely injured and trapped in a pile of wreckage, unaware that she'd been swept over the length of 2 football fields from her home.
I could hear roaring river on one side, exploding electrical wires on another side, so I knew it was probably better for me just to lay there, because if my leg got released and I moved, I could end up in the roaring rapids or get electrocuted. I yelled, help, help, help. I heard someone saying, we're coming to get you.
She had her legs wrapped in wire and had some injuries, and they needed some help getting her off of that pile.
And he said, where was the house? And that was a really somber moment when he put it in the past tense.
Andy and his team were able to miraculously pull Kim from the debris to safety, but her daughter Lauren was still missing. They asked her where her house might be.
And so I pointed my hand over my head, just kind of thinking I might have been in my backyard somewhere. So I was kind of thinking the house is back there.
And as she pointed in that direction, there was a huge debris pile that had multiple cars up on top of it. And so it seemed like a likely possibility that there might be someone in those cars or kind of hanging onto that debris pile.
What they didn't know was that she was buried under a mountain of wreckage.
I heard talking, and that's when I realized that I had to get someone to find me. So I started screaming just as loud as I could.
We made access to the debris pile. Captain Hauser stayed on the ground. I climbed up onto the pile. You know, he stopped and he said, did you hear that? He said, someone's calling for help. And sure enough, once I got my head down closer to that pile, I could hear Lauren Canton calling out for help.
But this rescue was not going to be easy. One false step and the pile could collapse on Lauren.
We were able to move things like a refrigerator, a transistor from a telephone pole, the big toolbox that goes in the back of a pickup truck, and then started again working on some of the wood and debris that was in there.
And then once I was out, I stood up and kind of just looked around at everything for a sec. I just remember thinking, wow, because once I looked out, there was one house standing where our whole neighborhood used to be, and all the trees were down. Everything was just an open space.
How are you feeling? Are you okay?
Oh, perfect.
Lauren was transported to a hospital, but her mother, Kim, had been admitted to a different facility, so she had no idea that her daughter had been saved.
I was in the emergency room. I remember a door opened and they said, do you have a daughter named Lauren? And I said, yes. And they said, they just rescued her.
Days later, Kim and Lauren were finally reunited.
It was very emotional. She was very bruised and purple and, you know, hooked up to a lot of things. She couldn't really move.
Kim and Lauren experienced unimaginable loss that day. But in the months after, they also found strength from the support of the Montecito community.
It's one day at a time. It was the night the unimaginable happened, but you try to take joy in the human kindness that you've seen from so many people in the community.
They've even forged a special bond with Andy and the other first responders who saved their lives that day.
I'm so indebted to them. And then they've since been very supportive, where my daughter likes to sing and they come to her performances.
I've stayed in contact with Kim and Lauren. I'm just happy to stay in touch with them and hope that it continues for a long time.
Today, we got a great reminder about the importance of being prepared and mindful for potential dangers and disasters.
Being aware and heeding the alert warnings from professionals are the first steps to avoid potential tragedy.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Hearts of Heroes.